Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dentistry Unmasked. My name is David Rice, and I'm here as usual with
Hey everybody, Pam Maragliano Muniz. What is going on?
everything is great. Today's episode is extra exciting. We have one of the giants in dentistry in so many respects. So I'm super excited to be here. Pam, you want to introduce our guest?
I guess so. No, I am thrilled. I couldn't wait to get him on. Sam Alawie, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, David. I have a giant heart, but I'm not close to be a giant in dentistry. I want to keep it humble and simple, and but thank you for the kind introduction.
That's
Well,
what we
we're
love about you, Sam. You just let you and who you are kind of do all the talking and as well as your work, which is pretty impeccable. So
Thank
sorry,
you.
Pam, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no. So I know you two know each other a little bit better than I know Sam, and I know David. You said Sam has a pretty cool story. So I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit more about you so we all can kind of get to know you. I think many people know you as, you know, just I don't know. I don't want to say, I would say like one of the best lab technicians in the entire planet, right? So I think that that's a reasonable assessment of what we're working with here. But I want to get to know you as a person and kind of hear a little bit about your journey.
Thank you so much. So, if you go on my website, you will see my my bio. It says, I migrated to the United States in 2003. But prior to that, I've been a lab technician since 1994. So that's 30, this year marks 30 years, literally. So, and of course, the first, I would say 10 years out of school was more to gain experience and more to understand what patient want and what dentists want. These two things are not being taught at schools. And this is where student, even dentist or lab technician out of school, they will have hard time walking that thin line between what the patient want and what we can achieve to them. It take a lot of skills to understand. And from not only skills, and mistakes will happen, and those mistakes will be your best lesson in that perspective. So originally, I was born in Lebanon as a country, and unfortunately, we had to move to Europe due to ongoing war. And I hate politics, so I will not enter in talking about politics. So we got lucky enough to leave our country in one piece, and then grew up in Belgium. I went to lab technician school. I want to tell you a quick story. I applied to be a dentist first out of high school, and Belgium back then had a some sort of a quota how many students they take a year. And I don't know if the law is still the same for universities. So I went and I applied twice and was some sort of a lotto picking people, and they only take up to 700 students per year. So I did not make the cut. And I was frustrating walking in the corridor, and another gentleman, I heard him voicing his frustration. I say, "What's going on?" He say, "I didn't get picked this year, but I'm going to lab technician school." So because year two in dentistry and back in Europe is a lot of lab work. And he said, "You want to go with me? Let's go explore this." This is how this whole thing came up. We worked together to the lab technician school. We applied, we got accepted, and then we both became lab technicians. And this is how I actually became a lab technician. Originally, I was aiming to be a dentist. I can tell you one thing. I have so many dentist friends, and they complain a lot to me. So I'm happy that this happened. I'm happy I turned into a lab technician. But this is like just a quick story about that. So then you ask me my journey here in the USA, and so 2003 was March 11, 2003. I landed at LAX, and a friend of mine picked me up. So of course, you don't come here if you have a lot of money. You stay where you are if you have a lot of money. I was literally maybe 9 years out of school, and the beginning is rough. You have to work for someone and then you have to learn. And I remember my very first boss slash mentor, he picked me from school and he hired me. And first day at the job, I said, where I can find a brush. I'm thinking about ceramic brush, but he handed me a broom brush. And he said, clean the lab. And I'm serious about this. And I looked at him like I was young and my ego was big and like, hey man, I'm ready to work. I'm not ready to clean a lab, but so he handed me the brush to clean the lab. So I cleaned the lab. Then when I finished cleaning the lab, I said, now can you give me the brush? He said, yes. So he handed me a painting brush. And he said, you see those windows are peeled off? Here's the paint and here's the brush. You go paint that. So that was a great lesson. Actually, I understood you have to really start from the below the bottom to get yourself step by step. Because if on that day he handed me a ceramic brush and I went and I tried to do ceramic, probably I'll be frustrated and not understanding what I'm doing, or maybe it will be an expensive lesson. But
Mm.
that humbled me and I did what I needed to do. And I understood the politics when you are in someone's house or lab, how you want to do. You prove yourself and then you move forward. The message here to any student, lab technician or dentist, out of school, you're going to be hired as an associate. You're going to do number 14 and 15, maybe not even premolars. Just accept the reality and learn from it. Take it as the best lesson offered to you at somebody else's expense. You're not paying the rent. You're not paying the investment to open an office. You are there to help the dentist of things they moved on doing more aesthetic work. So nothing wrong to accept that. I clean the floor, that's fine. You do number 15 and 14 and you make money. Then you move to the premolars. And once you are in that league, you start doing the aesthetic cases. And one big important detail is to pick a mentor. Please don't pick a mentor from Instagram. Pick a real mentor to inspire you, but teach you. Because, what you see online and on social media, um, maybe 50% at least is fake. The car, the office, the cases, maybe we enter in that subject, but there's a lot of Photoshop too. So please be inspired by someone legit, like a professor, like a teacher, like someone been in academia. This is the people I would look into to be inspired from, not someone that have an Instagram hype. Very important.
I love that, especially coming from somebody like you who's consistently showcasing just gorgeous dentistry, highlighting the dentists that you work with and how you all work together. Those are words we've heard from several people, Pam. I know that both you and I respect, and it just keeps resonating like deeper and deeper and deeper with me.
It does, but I have to question, I don't want to say that, the generation of young dentists coming in, but I don't know, David, you work with many more young dentists than I do, but how many young dentists would stick around if the first thing that they have handed to them is a broom? Like, is that something that we just all need to kind of do, or is this something that we don't see anymore? I mean, I think a lot of young dentists want to just have this crazy trajectory of their skills, of their communication skills, their patient load, the aesthetic demands, but I'm not sure if that's reality.
It's a tough one. I would say for many, they wouldn't do that. On the flip side, the ones that I know who do that and who've done that, it seems by like year 3 or 4, they start really like leapfrogging so many others who weren't willing to learn those really, valuable foundational lessons in the beginning. It's just last night, a student in a young dentist course who I mentored years ago. And it was so fun to be an audience member and see like, whoa, like he went from crawl, crawl, crawl to, oh my gosh, he's so far ahead of most dentists who've been doing this 20 years. So I think if a young dentist is willing to do those things, boy, there's a ton of value in it.
I would think so. So, Sam, you said, find a real mentor. Don't just go on Instagram who has the prettiest photos and sign up and ask them to be your mentor. What characteristics should people look for in a really solid mentor?
Okay, so first, I want to just go back a little bit in time because about your comment, if the dentist will accept to get a broom or clean the floor, that happened to me, and that's an example. However, on an entry-level dentist in any places, of course, there's nothing wrong if they enter that place and they leap high and they become a their own boss and opening an office and drive their business like I did, basically, So nothing wrong with that, for sure, if someone can help and handle it, right? Of course, so to answer your question about what kind of mentor people need to have, first, I suggest somebody that they work for. When you start out of school, watch your boss if he is the right person to be your mentor. That's why you need to accept to be that entry-level person and be humble and learn from that person. If you try to bypass your own boss or owner of the practice, he will not be your ideal mentor. You want an ideal and an idol mentor at the same time that you respect and you feel they have done their own homework and they are good dentists. So the criteria is to see where you're gonna work if they are good and they are in those people that take CE credit and classes and they are up to date with technology, digital dentistry. That's someone you can call mentor. The second person you can call mentor, believe it or not, is your lab technician, because he can hold your hand through any process and make the case, make sure works well. Picking up a lab that understand the clinical aspect of your work as a dentist is a big deal. And it's not about how nice a veneer will look. Daily, my phone does not stop, even at
Mm.
night. And people in the East Coast that work with me, 5 a.m., they start texting. They have questions, they have ideas, they have a case they want to do, what we do with it. A lot of consulting work that I wasn't trained back then in school for. That came with time and experience. So what happened is the best second mentor should be your lab technician. Pick the lab wisely, not only can give you beautiful work, but also can support you, guide you, teach you, help you. These are the
That's
most important criteria.
Yeah. And day in and day out, we're either working together and growing together, or probably we're missing some great opportunities.
True. And relationship dentist lab is simply like marriage. There will be some misunderstanding. There will be love again. We will share the money we make, and this is how it is. Or there will be a divorce. I have good friends. They are dentists. We don't work together. We are not good fit. And I accept that. And I accept we made mistakes here. It's normal. Errors are nature of human. And that's very acceptable. And certain dentists are my good friends. They think it's not worth it for them to use an expensive lab. So I respect this relationship. So when there's a divorce, don't burn the bridge. Divorce nicely. no ugly divorce.
Amen to that. Well,
Yeah.
I want to hear more though about your journey because you don't just go to lab tech school and then become who you are. And you've got such a reputation for excellence and creating restorations that are lifelike and really mimic nature in a way that you just don't see everywhere else. So, like, how did you get to that point? I mean, there's got to be a level of mentorship and seeing some things you want to strive to, but it's got to be inherent within you too.
Thank you for this question. So I'll give you more details, and I'm not shy about it. So when I landed at LAX, I had $480, okay, in my pocket, and I had a friend here, okay, and a lot of hope that I should make it here. And I didn't come to America to fail, because remember when we started the Zoom meeting, I said I was born in Lebanon. I had to move to Europe to stay safe. And then now moving from Europe to another continent, right? That's a lot for a human being to adapt to three different cultures, languages. I didn't speak English. Okay, so landing LAX, $480. And then I said, okay, I'm here to make it. So March 11, that's why I said the date. I landed March 11 around noon. So I'm jet lagged, right? It's midnight for me in Europe. So next day morning, the good friend I had here had kind of find me a job interview to go check somewhere, So next day, I barely slept, jet lag, tired. I go to this lab and I ask the owner with my extremely broken English that I barely could express. I said, "Do you have a job for me?" He said, "Yeah, what do you do?" So I was trying to tell him all my knowledge, but he didn't, and he did not understood. And he looked at me, he felt maybe, I don't know, pity for me. And he said, "Okay, I'll hire you, go do the model work." I said, "Sure." So on March 12th, I was working. March 11, I arrived. March 12th, I was working interview, and I start working in the plaster department. My ego did nothing to me. I did master lab technician in Europe to go to the plaster department because I also was confused in terms, English, everything. I said, let me start somewhere. And I remember that day, the broom. I say, okay, first job, I had to broom the lab. This, I have to make the model. Let me make the model. It's okay. So I went to the model department and I worked hard all day, and I was falling to sleep end of day because of the jet lag. And March 13, back to the lab, same thing, model. 1 month go through, I'm doing model. Still, I hear them arguing together in the lab with a problem with the case, and was an implant case, and that's usually my forte, implant work. So I tried to explain why it's not working, and the boss was looking at me surprised. Then this is where I caught his attention. And he said to me, do you know implant? I say, yes. So I start helping his implant department, and I took it completely immediately to a different level. And this is where I was feeling now I'm more appreciated and nothing wrong with model department. The model is the most important in a lab, but not somebody with like already 10-year experience. You don't start in the model department. Out of school, you do. So I start helping, and immediately I got better position. And I didn't have a car back then, so I went to the junkyard. I bought a Mazda and had a hole in the floor, and $500, I remember. So I would start driving around a little bit, learning the country. And I lasted at this job only 6 months, and I got fired. The reason I got fired, because the lab had about 7, 8 technicians. The reason I got fired, all the technicians now get up and come to me and ask me the questions, and they don't go to the owner of the lab. He felt something is wrong. He felt I may take his employees. I don't know. He felt insecure, and he told me, why you bought sandwiches at lunch for the employees? One day I made a mistake, so I go to, I don't know, sandwich place, And I picked up all these half sandwiches. And when I came back, I said, hey, I bought you this. He got so upset and he fired me because I think he felt I'm building a relationship with his employees, you know. I got fired, and so I had that little Mazda and few $100 because 6 months later, you haven't break the bank, you start in the model department. So I start looking for a job, and I found a job in Pasadena, which is 30-minute drive from where I lived. And I was looking for a place they speak French, to be honest with you. So I heard of a technician that speaks French, and he's in Pasadena. So I showed up at the door. I knocked on the door and I said, hey, I'm here. You speak French? He said, yeah. So we spoke in French. I said, do you need someone? He said, no, not right now. Matter of fact, I'm leaving tomorrow on vacation. He goes, uh, but maybe when I come back, talk to me. I said, okay. So I left, but I did like the lab. They have a very boutique, small lab, but very clean. So an hour later, I went back, knocked on the door. I said, look, don't give me a job, but give me the opportunity to show you my work. And then also, I'm willing to work for free and help you here. I want no money, just for you to see my work. He looked at me, he said, okay, I'm leaving tomorrow, but you can come like this. So I go, I work 1 month for free. Of course, immediately I got noticed with my implant work and planning of those large cases. And then second month went by, I'm still not paid, and I'm barely surviving. Thanks for Walmart chicken. Cheap, you know. And long story short, I worked in that place for 2.5 years, but first 3 months of my career, I was working for free, basically. Took advantage of me, knowing I needed a job, and kept promising me I'd maybe hire you, I maybe hire you. One day, somebody quit, and this is where I get the job, basically. So I worked 3 months, survived this, and from a technician, I became the lab manager of that place, you know. So that's end of 2005, beginning of 2006. I asked for a small raise. And he said, I'll get back to you. 1 month went by, 2 months went by. Every time I asked, I'll get back to you. So now I had $5,000 saved, and I still have that master. And I said to myself, you know, this is very insulting. This is America. This is the land of opportunity. Why people treating me like that? I know why. Because they're not American. They're not real American. They're not even, they're immigrant, but they don't have the American mentality. And that's why I said, okay, now I have to learn the American mentality of doing business, and I'm going to go on my own. So I called my friend and my sister. I said, hey, I'm going to open a lab. I can't stay here. They laughed at me and they said, you can't do it. I said, I have $5,000 in the bank account, and I have one credit card, nothing else, has a limit of $5,000. I never used it. So here's $10,000. I'm going to manage this situation. They told me I'm crazy. So I quit the lab politely, and I said, this is not working for me financially, and I'm going to go on my own. I remember there's a dentist. His name is Dean Ramus. He's in Beverly Hills. One day I did a case for him, and he asked me, when I was working the other lab, he asked me if I ever open a lab, he want to work with me. Because when I did the case, he requested the lab technician who did the case to be present. So I was there, and this is how I met him. And that was my first time driving to Beverly Hills. Of course, imagine Mazda 323 1980 has no navigation. I had a flip phone, 2006. So I come to 8920 Wilshire Boulevard to meet him. I see the case. When I was leaving the building, for some reason, I turn my head up and I see the sign on the building. It says for rent, and the name of the agent, Rob Zass, and a phone number. So I left the building. I took the flip phone, took a picture of it, and I left. So I kept it in my head. When I quit my job, I called that number and I say, hey, I'm looking for space for rent. You're laughing, David. I know you say this guy has no money calling Beverly Hills real estate. But that's happened. So I called, I said, I'm interested. Do you have anything? Why? Because I look at the building directory, has about 40 dentists. I said, this is the right place to be. He don't return my call. Called the next day, he don't return my call. Called every day. I used to leave him a message for 3 days. The guy did not return my call. And then I decided to leave him a rough message. Now I'm learning the American way. I say, why you leave your name on the building and your number and you say for rent and you don't return my call? Obviously, I'm stupid here because every building has that sign, even there's no vacancies or vacancy, you know. He ended up calling me, say, I feel like you're not from here, you're not understanding what you're doing, and goodbye, and hang up the phone in my face. Then 15 minutes later, he calls me back. He said, listen, I'm a New Yorker. Sorry, I was short with you. Actually, I have a 300 square feet with no window to the outdoors. And fairly cheap rent, used to be a medical lab. Do you want it? Do you want to look at it? I said, yeah, sure. So I go there, I looked at it, has already benches for medical lab. All benches burned with acid and everything. No windows to the outside, nothing. And the building manager said the rent is fairly cheap because it's hard to rent space, but we can paint it, we can remove these benches. I said, no, give me the cheapest rent and I'll sign a lease. I didn't understood what lease. They give me a thick lease like that. Anyway, for space that costed back then $1,200. So I rented the space, and my sister and my friend say I'm crazy. And I immediately find used equipment. And I looked for a lab name, and I looked, there's no Beverly Hills Dental Lab. I said, I'm taking the name. So I take the name, and I told the building, well, I'm here, I'm a lab technician, let me do work for you. And this is how it took off. Out of no money, started very little, bought little equipment, and I started with one-man show, which is me. Used to sleep in the lab sometimes to finish work for just dentists in the building.
Hey guys, it's David here. Listen, we're having such a great time. We're going to break this up into 2 parts. So I'm hoping you loved session 1. Session 2 is coming next week. We'll see you there. Thank you everyone for watching or listening to the show this week. And thanks to our guests and sponsors on this episode.
Please check out our social media at Dr. Pamela_Maragliano and at Dental Economics Official.
Or you can check me out at Ignite DDS or at Dr. David Rice.
And go to dentaleconomics.com to receive dental economics. You can choose to receive DE in print or digitally, and you can also get the details of our Principles of Practice Management conference on our website.
If you have topics or guests or anything you'd like to talk about on the show, send us an email to dentistryunmaskedpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our very best to make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.